Hello, everybody. My name's Ian, and I am live today in the Neutral Zone Studios. It's good to be here. And this is day two of our weekend here. And I changed shirts today. I decided to go with the gold shirt today. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in here today talking about different things that happened in Star Trek and all the different aspects of it. A few episodes. One of the things I'm going to do here in just a little while is I'm going to go live in the auxiliary control room, and I'm going to talk about my favorite episode, The Doomsday Machine, from the original series, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you guys about Star Trek. Star Trek, it was something that I think nobody, when it was being made, understood. I don't think they understood the scope and the size of what they were doing and how it would affect everything going forward. Everything from the space program and the development of new technologies and the love and the quest for space. I think it's a lot of things have changed over the years because of Star Trek and because of the I don't know what you want to call it, the force that people love Star Trek, and then that gets moved into other things, careers. So many people out there. Good morning, Peggy. So many people out there say, "Hey, I'm an astronaut because I watched Star Trek as a child." One of the astronauts that died in one of the shuttle crashes, when they went through her desk, they found a Star Trek The Next Generation comm badge in her desk. She loved Star Trek. And they now have that comm badge on display. At least it was. They're remodeling now, so I'm not sure what's on display this week in the Air and Space Museum, but they did have that on display in the Air and Space Museum, that comm badge that she had in her drawer, because this show, Star Trek, specifically for her, Star Trek The Next Generation, inspired her to become an astronaut, which is not an easy thing, both academically, physically, or emotionally. And so I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of people that are in a lot of different fields. A lot of your people out there that become engineers and become chemists and become doctors. They do it because they saw the people on this show doing that, and they wanted to be that in their time, and so that's what they ended up doing. I know with me, it's always driven me to do more and do better. And I don't know. When I was a kid, one of the stories I like to tell, and it's crazy, but when I was a kid, I was 12 years old, and the only station that had Star Trek on anywhere, anytime. And back then there was no owned media, so I had to find it on a TV show somewhere, on a TV channel, and I had to tune it in. We only got 6, 8, 10 channels, and none of them had Star Trek on it. So uh, I went to the library and checked out a book on how to build a receiver antenna that I could put an array of antennas on my roof, and I could pick up WTOG channel 44 out of Tampa, which was showing it on Saturday and Sunday nights at midnight. And both nights, to my parents' chagrin, I would stay up. It was like religion. I would have everything in the room ready. I already had looked up which episode should be on tonight if they're following the proper running order. And I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And that interested me in science and radios and public safety and uniforms and establishment and all the things that ended up working out in my life for me. And so I credit Star Trek, just like so many others, for the successes I've had, a lot of them in my life, because I did a lot of this because I felt empowered by this show. I just love this show. And a lot of people don't realize how big the Star Trek franchise has grown. You know, there's over 800 hours. There'll soon be 900 hours of Star Trek out there. I want you to think about that. If you started binge watching today and you watched, say, 8 hours a day. It could take months and months and months and months to binge watch everything. And if you're going to do that, get with me because I got some suggestions. There's several ways to binge watch. You can binge watch in air order, or you can binge watch in chronological order within the Star Trek universe, and that's kind of fun. I know some people that have done that. Um, yeah, because let me tell you, here's, and I'm going to go through all this. This is crazy. I'm going to probably miss some stuff, but you have Star Trek, the original series, went 3 seasons, okay? And then you have Star Trek, the animated series, went a season. So there you go. We're almost at 100 already. And then you have Star Trek: The Next Generation, 7 seasons of about 25 episodes a season, give or take. Deep Space Nine, 7 seasons at 25 episodes a season, and Voyager, 7 seasons at 25 episodes a season, plus Star Trek Enterprise with Scott Bakula went 4 seasons with uh, 25 or so episodes per season. I'm being pretty general because they all fluctuate a little bit. That was back when TV was difficult and they did it because they loved it. Today, all they seem to be able to make is 10 episodes a year. It's kind of crazy considering filmmaking has come a long way, yet it takes 2 or 3 times longer to make TV than it did back then. You know, these guys, they would, the show is in production year round, and they may only shoot 6 or 7 months out of the year, but that show was in complete production. It was in pre before that, it was in post after that, and it was something that was, you were always working on the next episode. You know, if you were here on this episode, towards the end of the week, you would have your script for next week's episode, and you'd already be starting to work on that. And it was constantly going every week for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, if necessary, that week. You would shoot that episode to get all the principal shooting done, and then it would move to the next step and the next step, and eventually it would move into where they did the special effects, and it would move into final editing and all that kind of stuff, and it would go on down the track, and it was an assembly line. While one was being written, the next one was being written, even, finalized, and then the next one was being finalized and written and read by all the and then the next one was, and then finally you get up to this one here's in production next week, and we're getting everything ready this week for it, including the prosthetics and all this kind of stuff. So it's like an assembly line that went along. It's not like that anymore. TV's become this long drawn out process. I wonder if these people, and a lot of them in TV today, could hold up to the rigors of a 26 episode shooting schedule in one year. It's quite a bit if you think about it. But anyway, and then after all those shows I mentioned to you, you've got the 3 J.J. Abrams movies. You've got, I think, 11 regular Star Trek movies, 10 or 11, I don't know, all the way through into, what is it? Yeah, and Nemesis, I think, was the last one. But you got a bunch of movies, including the great Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, one of the best cinematic movies ever. And then, of course, we get into the newer stuff. We took a hiatus for a little while through the early 2000s, and then Paramount Plus, which was CBS Plus at the time, came out and started making Star Trek Discovery. They started making several 3 cartoons that I don't care about because I don't watch them. And they also started making, after a few years of Discovery, which I thought was a pretty good program, one of my least favorite Star Treks. Um, they started making Star Trek Strange New Worlds with the Christopher Pike and Number One. Uh, and I got to tell you something. That show is wonderful. I would come out in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd wake up and lay there in bed, and the moment I would remember that, hey, the episode dropped overnight, I would get up and run out and go watch it at 4:30 in the morning because I was just giddy that a new episode had dropped of Star Trek. It's amazing. I wasn't alive when the original series was on the air, and so I don't know what and I knew what it was like. I can remember the Best of Both Worlds, season 3, The Next Generation. Do you guys remember that? Riker's on the bridge. He's staring at the view screen. There's a Borg, Jean-Luc Picard, in front of him on the view screen, and they've rigged a deflector dish to emit a large pulse of electromagnetic energy to destroy the Borg cube. And at the very end of the episode, the music builds, Everything builds, and he says fire, and then dun dun dun, and that was it. They went to the commercial, and we waited, I think, 5 months to find out what happened. And then, of course, when we came back, we found out nothing happened. It didn't work, and we had to do the whole rest of the episode to finally defeat the Borg. Anyway, it was great. The best of both worlds is one of the best two-parters in the franchise. Not the best, one of the best. I think Year of Hell and Voyager may probably be the best two-parter in the franchise. I know that's crazy. I'm also partial to the Menagerie because we get to see the original Cage. For those of you who don't know, Star Trek was one of the rare things in Hollywood. It was given a second chance. Most things in Hollywood that are not seen as good fail. They made the Cage. You guys are familiar. If you're familiar with Star Trek, you're familiar with the Cage. They made the Cage, and they gave it to the producers, and they didn't want it. The executives did not want it, and so what they ended up doing was making another one. This time with William Shatner, and the second one worked. The Corbinite maneuver, that one worked, and that went on to. I'm sorry, Where No Man Has Gone Before. I just said the wrong one. Where No Man Has Gone Before was the second pilot, and that pilot, if you noticed, the shirts are different. There's some differences in that particular one. That they still have the comms, snorkel comm things on the tables and stuff. And that particular episode was the second pilot, and they bought it. And then, of course, the show was then refined into what we know today. I know it's crazy that the second pilot actually aired, I think, third or fourth. The first thing that aired was the Man Trap, the Salt Vampire episode. So it's kind of was a weird thing. Um, Sorry about this, but I didn't get that. Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of things Star Trek had going for it back then. I mean, you can look at Lost in Space. You can look at the different science fiction endeavors that were out there. Even some really good ones like Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits were very good shows. But they lacked what Star Trek had. Star Trek had a few things they didn't have. Um, they had imagination. There was a lot of imagination. There was a lot of good acting. There was a lot of, for the time, very good special effects, and that I think is what led to the success of it. But also, I think it was the ideals. Gene Roddenberry's ideals for the perfect future, and the whole idea of Star Trek. The whole idea that we venture into the universe, and then we as humans become the ones that create this whole Starfleet and this whole united federation of planets all over the Alpha Quadrant, if you will. And we bring peace. It may not come right away, but we bring peace everywhere we go. And it was the hopefulness. I want you guys to think about something. Here's what I love about Star Trek more than anything else. I want you to think about, other than Lost in Space, every single other science fiction outing shows the far future, or even the near future, as dystopian, where everything's ruined, everything's destroyed. The globe is ruined by big factories, and the air is polluted, and there was nuclear war, and the oceans are barren, and every single one of them, from Mad Max to, I mean, you pick any kind of movies about the future, and they're generally pretty negative. They're generally a future that you probably don't want to live to see. Star Trek's the exact opposite of that. Star Trek is showing you what the optimal future would be, us traveling amongst the stars as peace bringers. We got a long way to go to get there, I think, but we're going to get there. And I think that's what's so important about Star Trek, is it brings that amazing, important message uh, of peace and love and hope to the universe. And so I watch it every chance I get. I absolutely love it. And I think that's probably another thing that was so enduring about it. And the really cool part is, no one that was making the show back then realized that this show was going to be so big. When Bill Shatner, I read his book, Bill Shatner's TV show memories and movie memories. I read those books years ago. Great books Bill wrote. Those, he writes about a time. Um, yes, it was. It was. It very much was. Um, that those. Yeah, it was about harmony, and it was about peace. It was just a wonderful, great thing that Star Trek was, and it was always that amazing universe out there that brought it wanted to bring people together. And even though there was phaser fights, and there was things going on in space, and armadas of spacecrafts and everything else, at the end of the day, we didn't fire first. We wore the white hats. And even though we had a few bad admirals, or as we call them, badmirals, uh, and we had a few corrupt people within Starfleet, that's always going to be the case where humans are involved. But generally, overall, the Starfleet message and the Starfleet, what it brought to the universe when it went out, was peace and harmony and love, and let's get along, let's work together, let's do trade, you know. And there was a few things they tried to envision a society with no money. Later on in Star Trek, they kind of there has to be some kind of money. Now, you may not want to use it in the military, but you still got to give your military people something to spend when they're off duty. So there's this weird thing where there has to be some kind of money, and little things like that. But I mean, Star Trek really was a utopian type scenario where people just went into the stars and discovered things. Some of the best episodes don't have anything to do with the bad guy. Many of them just have to do with figuring out what happened and what they have to do to get out of the schnicket that they're in or whatever. There's so many good episodes out there, but we're going to talk about some of those. There's some neat things here. They've published this, so I'm not giving out any secrets here. I read this on the website and I saw it here. They have the Guardian of Forever exhibit here, and they're going to be putting it up soon. And so if you come here to the studio at some point, once they get this put up, you can't see it right now, it's under a tarp, but eventually the entire set with the rocks and all has been rebuilt of the Guardian of Forever from one of my favorite one of my top 10 episodes, City on the Edge of Forever. Or for people who are Trekkies like me, we just call it City. It's easier. But that's a great episode. It's the one where Kirk and Spock have to go back in time to fix the damage that was done by a crazy Dr. McCoy that overdosed on drugs accidentally. And what an amazing episode. We get to meet Edith Keeler, and we get to go and see pre-World War II America. And Kirk falls in love. And I hate to spoil it if you haven't watched it, but if you're one of these people, it's like, I've never really watched Star Trek. Go look up City on the Edge of Forever and watch that and see if it appeals to you. It's got a great love story in it, which don't appeal to me, but a lot of people like that. And it's probably, if you're into like space battles and stuff like that, I would recommend Doomsday Machine, or Balance of Terror, or The Tholian's Web. There's some great episodes out there. Even The Dolmen of Elas is not so bad as far as battle scenes and stuff go from the old series. But if you want to talk about, all the different, type of genres that there are out there, a lot of people like City because it's a love story. Kirk goes back and falls in love with a woman, and what has to happen to her is pretty bad in order for history to be set right. And the end of that one, when I was a kid, made me cry. I mean, it was so bad. Even today, it's like, wow. When I watched that to the end, I tell my wife, I said, I don't, that when I watched the last scene of that one, it was emotional to me. Peggy, do me a favor, just watch one thing. It's 52 minutes long, okay? Find the remastered version of City on the Edge of Forever. I say remastered because they went back and they cleaned it up and made it look better, and they put a little bit of new CG and stuff in. And if you find that one, it's a little more modern. Yeah, it's called City on the Edge of Forever, and it's on most people's top 10 list. So that's a really good one right there, because that one will kind of show you the Star Trek universe in a whole, uh, without, it's not all just about starships and uniforms and stuff. It's really cool. Um, I try to find people, I try to get people that have never watched Star Trek before, and I say, look, what do you like? Let me find an episode to hook you, like a fish. I try to hook people and say, what do you like? And, oh man, I like space battles. Oh, you're gonna love this. And they, I show them the remastered version of the Doomsday Machine, and they're hooked. Next thing you know, it's Balance of Terror, and now they're watching. Now they've subscribed to Paramount Plus, and which I'm not doing an ad for, but they subscribe and they're watching. The Strange New Worlds with the new Christopher Pike. Ensign Mount plays Christopher Pike. It's an amazing show. I love the people that play on that show. Great cast. Um, if you weren't happy with Discovery, please give Strange New Worlds a chance, because I didn't much like Discovery. Once they went way forward in the future, I found some use with it. But uh, if you disliked Discovery for maybe weird reasons or something like me, you might like Strange New Worlds, because it's not as bad like that. And just take my word for it. Let's see, as far as this new Star Trek stuff, I hear we've got a Section 31 movie coming out that's going to have um, that's going to have the actor that played in the first season of Discovery there. Um, I blanked on her name, but she's supposed to go and do a Section 31 story, so I'm kind of anxious to see how that comes out. And then I know they're trying to work on two or three different movies. The movies keep getting shot down. What ends up happening is they get some really great actors to play Kirk and Spock and Bones and Scotty, and I love all of them. In those J.J. Abrams movies, the three movies, a lot of Trekkies hate those movies. I do not hate those movies. They're not bad movies. They're alternate timeline movies. They have nothing to do with this universe, other than it's a similar alternate universe to this. But I don't look at that as canon at all. It's alternate universe. It's what we call the Kelvin timeline. And so uh, I don't know, that whole thing's kind of weird. But I do like those movies. They are worth watching. The CG is amazing. My biggest problem with the J.J. Abrams movies is it's almost like they're like, okay, here's how we want to destroy the ship. We want to destroy the ship just like this. We want it to crash. We want the nacelles to fly off. We want it to sever this and that, and we want to like blow it into pieces. And then now, I want you to write me a movie around that scene. That really is kind of what it feels like those movies are. It's like, I want you to write me a really, really, really good excuse for the CG that I want to make. And so, but that being said, worth watching for sure. Especially if you got Paramount Plus, you can watch them right there. Um, the last thing I want to talk about in this live, and I'm gonna hit on this in a little while, because I'm gonna talk specifically about Star Trek Continues. But I want to talk about fan films. How many shows out there, 50 years later, have people gone and built the entire original set just like it was back in the 60s? Just one, this one. And this isn't the only set, there's two of them. I think there's three, at least three bridges that I know of. They found the original shuttlecraft in a junkyard on satellite image, and they bought it. And when they bought the shuttlecraft, they took it, and this guy fixed it up. He kept the frame and as much of it as he could keep, and he rebuilt the entire shuttlecraft Galileo at 3/4 scale, just like it was. If you ever wonder, I call the Galileo 7 the TARDIS of Star Trek, because when you look, Spock has to bend down so far to get in the shooting model that was built. But then when they turn around and show him inside, he's standing almost straight up. And so I always laughed at that, because the shuttlecraft is a 3/4 size model. It's not. the inside is a set that's built at the right size. And so it's actually bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, which is the Doctor Who reference of the TARDIS, which is an English phone booth, if you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, oh boy, this has been fun today. But check out fan films. If you want to see amateur actors and amateur filmmakers making some really good shows, and remember, when it comes to Trek, the storytelling is paramount. Yeah, that's a pun. I did it on purpose. The storytelling is paramount. It really is. If you tell a great story and you have good scripts and good writing, and the people that love to do it are doing it, it's a great, great thing. Even though when you watch it, you're like, ooh, the acting's rough. It is. They're amateurs. Look at me. I look like crap in this uniform. They'd probably hire me too. It's all volunteers. They all volunteer to be on these. I've even volunteered myself to help out behind the scenes on some of them, and we'll probably be doing that here in the near future. I love fan films. The best one, Star Trek Continues with Vic Mignogna. I absolutely love the series. It's 11 episodes. There's also some shorts, and it literally finishes the 5-year mission. And all you have to do to find that is go to the neutral zone, go to neutralzonestudios.com, or go to Star Trek Continues and just search it on YouTube. Well, you can search it on YouTube too. They're all on YouTube. They're free. You can watch them. You can also buy them on media if you want to, with a donation. So there's all kinds of neat things you can do. And there's a lot of other ones. There's Exeter Trek. They just one of the crews redid what happened before the Enterprise found the constellation dead in space on the Doomsday Machine. We got to see what happened when the constellation came in on that planet that was being sliced apart into chunks by the planet killer. And that was kind of cool to be able to see the first half of that episode that we never got to see in real time. And they've remade a lot of episodes. One of my favorite Star Trek Continues episodes, do you remember in the end of Mirror Mirror, when the good Kirk and the three good Bones, the good Scotty, and the good Uhura are standing on the pads, and the evil Spock with the beard is going to beam them down. He's letting them go because he's a good man. That's always been the thing, is the evil Spock had the beard, but he was the good guy. That I always thought that was kind of neat. Well, at the end, he tells Captain Kirk, Kirk tells him, he says, you need to end this. It's not right. He says, all it takes is one man. And Spock tells him, I shall remember it. And he beams him down. And next thing you know, Spock mutinies on the Enterprise, and you get to see what happens in the alternate universe after the episode that we saw on TV years and years and years ago. We got to see what happened. Spock takes over, and he gets half the crew on his side, and he ends up fighting for control of his ship. He tries to save the Hulkins, and it's really neat. And so they did all of the uniforms. The Vic Mignogna, who played Captain Kirk, wore a shirt, and I almost think it's the same one, but it was a shirt that looked identical to the one that Kirk wore in Mirror Mirror, and everything was exactly the same. The attention to detail in Star Trek Continues is just absolutely beyond anything. It's amazing, and so it's really worth watching. Um, there's also a lot of other fan films out there, and check those out. When we go later on, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the fan films, and I'm also going to go through all of the Star Trek Continues episodes real quick with you guys in a later broadcast. Coming up next, I'm going to be back live in just a few minutes, maybe an hour or so, from the auxiliary control room, where I'm going to deep dive my favorite episode, The Doomsday Machine, starring guest star William Wyndham. And it was well, in my opinion, is the best Star Trek outing to this day. It stands firm. And when they redid the remake, you can actually see the Enterprise making strafing runs on this Doomsday Machine. which is kind of something in years past. You could see close-ups of the phasers bouncing off, and you could see the phasers firing, but you really never saw the maneuvers of the big ships. And to see that small Enterprise that looks like a quarter size, I mean, in front of this thing, taking shots at it with these little teeny beams that you could hardly see, it really put it in perspective. And when they also redid the special effects on that episode, they really worked on the size of the shuttlecraft being properly represented going into the maw of the creature when Matt Decker takes the shuttlecraft in. There will be spoilers, spoiler alert. If you haven't watched the Doomsday Machine, go watch it. I'll give you 45 minutes and I'm coming back and we're going to talk about it live. We're going to be live all day today here at Neutral Zone Studios. That's neutralzonestudios.com. And they really could use your help. They've got a Patreon. Even if you can't make it here, $5 or $10 would really go a long way. And we would really appreciate that if you could help these folks out. Go to that. That's neutralzonestudios.com. And all the information about that, and of course links to Star Trek Continues, as well as direct links to their Patreon page, and links to videos and a lot of the fan productions that have been shot in this wonderful studio are linked there as well, so that you can see those. And finally, I'm going to leave you with this. The neatest thing about this studio, it's yours to rent. You can rent this place for a party, a wedding. You can't bring drinks in. But you can actually rent this space out. You call them, you negotiate it out, you talk to them, and for a donation, they'll let you rent it out. I think that's really cool. And you could have a little party in here and get together. You could do a photo shoot. But here's the coolest thing. You can schedule a shoot and actually come here, and for so much, they rent you out the studio for so many days. They run you power. They take care of anything you need while you're in here. Your crew comes in with their cameras and shoots you on these sets doing whatever it is you're doing. And the neat thing about Star Trek, all the ships look the same on the inside. Every ship we saw that was Starfleet, that was made on Earth or in the Utopia Planitia shipyards on Mars or wherever it was made, they all basically look the same on the inside. So just like with Next Generation, when they would go aboard another ship, they would just change the stuff around a little bit and put a new plaque on the wall, and boom, it's a different ship. Same thing here. Every time you saw another ship on Star Trek, it was just the same sets, obviously. And so it was kind of a money-saving thing. Well, that now works great for the fan productions, because now you can name your ship whatever you want. Make it look like whatever you want on the outside. And then come here and rent the studio and shoot your show. Get your uniforms, get your crew together. It's a really fun thing. And I mean, I'm to the point I want to do it. I don't have a crew yet, but I want to do it. So it's a really cool thing. Check all that out, neutralzonestudios.com. I'm going to be back in just a little while where we're going to deep dive the Doomsday Machine from Star Trek Season 2. We'll be back in just a little while. My name's Ian. This is StarShip Adventures, and I'm here this weekend with Carlotta Alata, and we are at Neutral Zone Studios. We'll be back.